Another month, another book for us to dive in and review. If we can keep everything straight and not mess anything up. It has been a fun day so far, and I realize I don't have anything set up for this at all. Woo! Roll the intro. Okay, we are back. So the book that we will be reviewing, and again, this is live for everyone that's on. So we're doing a live review of this book. We'll dive into it, do our normal breakdown, and then we will dive into some of the theological points that are in this book. But since this is a C.S. Lewis book, we wanted to set aside the time for it. We will also be going over the giveaway in more detail because for some reason we're still not getting anyone signed up for free books. So there's that. So let's go ahead and switch it on over to John Newton and find out what this book is about.
Okay. C.S. Lewis wrote the Screwtape Letters way back in 1942. It is essentially the enemy's playbook. How does the enemy trip you up? That's the big question of this book. Screwtape Letters is a satirical portrayal of human life and failings from the viewpoints of demons. Screwtape is a highly placed assistant to our Father below, in his words. He writes a series of letters to his apprentice, Wormwood, a novice demon in charge of securing the damnation of an ordinary young man. Now, a bit about the literary background. C.S. Lewis, perhaps best known for his children's books, The Chronicles of Narnia, first published this book in 1942. Even though it was written 80 years ago, the message it has in it is timeless and perhaps even more relevant to our world today as the war for souls has heated up. A little bit of trivia for this. C.S. Lewis dedicated this book to his friend J.R.R. Tolkien, who wrote The Lord of the Rings, if you're not familiar with that. In the original draft of the introduction, the letters, he said, were retrieved and translated from Old Solar by Ransom, the protagonist of the Space Trilogy. And if you have any question about what that is, look back on some of our previous videos, and you'll see that we did Out of the Silent Planet, Paralandra, and That Hideous Strength, which the protagonist of that story is Ransom. So that's an introduction. And what I'd like to do is to see if, unless you have any comments on it, I'd like to wrestle with the themes of this book. And I'll tell you in a minute where I'd like to take that approach.
Again, we can keep that for the deeper study. Real quick, the content that's in this, as far as sexual violence, gore, language, and drug use, there's references to a lot of stuff, but it's all very vague. There's no real description. I would add on one other section onto that we really haven't had in any other ones, just how dark this book is by its very nature. It is very dark. It's very demonic. You can't really get around from that when you're going from a demon's point of view. If you get the audio version of it, they do have sections from C.S. Lewis about when he was writing the letters that it took him to a very dark and dry place. So just keep that in mind as you're going into this. This is a very good book, and even as we go into a deep study and we do go through some spoilers, I still think there's a lot of value to be found there. So, personal impressions. I personally love this. I love this series. It's something that I should probably listen to maybe like once a month even, just to keep it in my mind, because there's just so much deep theology here. There's so much that I can see in my own life coming through. You know, times that the enemy have tried tripping me up, tactics the enemy has used. I'd say I've seen some of that in my own life, and I should be aware of that. And it's a question, am I struggling with the same thing the main character is struggling with? or the temptation that's being thrown at the human? Am I struggling with that? What's going on? So there's a lot to be learned. There's a lot of lessons there to be had. What are your personal impressions on that one?
Well, I think even though some of the themes can be dark, I think this would be fine for a younger reader, maybe a early teenager even. And it's not so much that there'd be anything negative about it. It's just some of the language is a little difficult to get through because it's written at a higher, maybe high school, collegiate level. And using words from, 1940s Britain, where you would have maybe some words we're not using anymore, like words for charity. Word charity. Charity usually think of as like it's some kind of organization that gives to the poor. That's what charity is, but really it's another word for love. So if you keep in mind some of the different terms that are being used, it's some great material and stuff that you'd almost have to pause it to listen to think it through a little bit before you go on with the rest of the story. And again, it's not really a story in terms of you have a beginning, middle, and an end and conclusion, although it does follow what they consider their patient. That's the term they use for the human that they're trying to tempt into hell. It does follow his storyline as he goes through, but it's not a typical story in that way. So in terms of when you say spoilers, what kind of spoilers are you thinking about for this?
Well, when we dive into the actual deep study, just talking about what goes on in the story, what are some of the temptations. Again, this is surprisingly the type of book that spoilers don't really spoil.
No.
In fact, I've listened to this many, many times. In fact, I can't even think of how many times I've actually listened to this all the way through or read it all the way through because it is just so good. And every time you go through it, you pick out new things. In fact, even though the time I just went through it, I was looking and saying, wow, I see some of those things and I never caught it before.
Yeah.
So it's a very deep one. Real quick here. Welcome. Hey, from the UK. So hi from the UK.
Maybe we can have some interpretation of some of the terms that he uses in
Yeah.
from the other side of the pond.
Yep. So the giveaway. So we're still doing the giveaway, just like every month. I want to give away a free copy of one of the books that we have reviewed. It is your choice on which book you'd like to review. I'll go ahead and actually, this time, we're going to go and check out the website itself. We are looking at the way to enter. The way to enter is like this video, subscribe, and the link is in the description of the video to the actual giveaway page. So let's go ahead and put you and me in the corner. Whoop. There we go.
Wow, look at that.
And here's the page itself. So book review giveaway, this is what happens when you click the link. You're taken right to John's website. You got a countdown for the giveaway, what book we're currently reviewing. This will change over to the Screwtape Letters, I'd assume sometime after we're done with them.
Yep.
Our last book review, which will switch over to this live stream.
Yep.
When we're done. And then the actual giveaway sign up section where you just put your name, your last name, your email, and then you just select what book you want. And this is very simple, very easy to do. First name, whatever you put in there is what we're going to call out as far as congratulations, X1. That way you know you get a little bit of a spotlight, but nothing too invasive. We've got your email down there. Again, we don't share that with anyone. That stays with John and myself. And then what book you want to win. This is something we changed last time. Now you can select whichever one you want to win that we've already reviewed, and this will constantly be updated with more and more books.
Can you click the drop down there to show what's on that list?
Does it not show it? Because it's up on my screen.
Oh, okay. Never mind. It should show all the books that we
It should. It's Outside on the Planet, Erlandra,
Yep.
That Hideous Strength, Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus, AD 30, the Critical Quran, because we had to fill in there for another book that I really did not like. Fahrenheit 451, Dune, and now the Screwtape Letters. So I don't know if that comes up on the stream because I'm sharing.
No, I don't see it.
Well, then that would answer it. So yeah, it's drop down menu. You can select whichever one you want. You subscribe, and then we select randomly from that list of people who have entered to give you a free copy. So we will go ahead and go back to our current topic, the Screwtape Letters. So let me put back my screen. Everything's wonky. This has been one wonky time. Just to let you guys know, if there are any books you guys want us to review, please leave those in the live chat or go ahead and put those into the comments section afterwards. I do check my comments section, and we might choose that to review. We will need to choose a book over the next couple of days. So whichever one you guys would like us to review, I'm open to a suggestion for next month and next month's giveaway. So the deep study, the deep dive into this book.
So this is what I've been looking forward to. We're going to take a different tact on this because it's a different type of book. So instead of just dissecting the plot, the setting, and the character development, we're going to wrestle with the themes. It's since it's a different type of book and not a story, we're going to take this approach instead. And let me add too that I'm doing this with a dose of humility. These are, when we're talking, these are simply reflections from us as readers. The C.S. Lewis has written extensively, I think 47 books or 75. I forget the number of books that he's written. And a true scholar. So from an armchair reviewer, I need to sit back and say, I got to be a little bit careful in sounding grandiose and putting some kind of judgment on this. But these are reflections from us, and I suggest that you read it or listen to it yourself. You're going to get far more out of it than listening to us. So consider this just a taste if you haven't read the book before, or a review if you have read it. So there's 5 themes I want to go over with you, if that's all right. What I want to do is I want to read one of the quotes from the book, based on whatever theme that we're looking at. And then we'll just go into discussion and then hit the next quote, and then we'll move on to the next theme and so forth. So the first one is the battle over the mind. And as you might assume, if we're talking about demonic attack over Christians or unbelievers, this would probably be the first thing you would think about. It's a struggle over what's happening in your mind. Now, this is the first quote. And again, this is Screwtape speaking. So this is an experienced demon talking to his apprentice. It's funny how mortals always picture us as putting things into their minds. In reality, our best work is done by keeping things out. What are your thoughts?
I think it really does turn it on its head. And this is really a depiction of a lot of what C.S. Lewis does with his theology. It's the way we normally think about it, but not quite right. Our stance being not quite right. And this ends up being a lot of times what we find in Scripture as well, with Jesus and the Pharisees thinking that Jesus is going to come as the Messiah is going to come as this great conqueror. He's going to establish his kingdom right there. He's going to overthrow the Romans. And Jesus comes, and that's not what it is. In fact, his entire mission is completely different. And that's just a depiction of, sometimes in the spiritual realm, we get it so far off because of our limited understanding of what is going on.
So how does temptation work better sometimes by keeping things out of our minds? What are some of the things that the enemy would like to keep out of our minds?
Well, thoughts of who God actually is, who who he wants us to become, what he's actually promising us, um, who the people we interact with actually are. Not that we're just all these beings who are just happen to be passing by each other, but who we are in the eternal sense.
Yeah, in one of the first letters here in this book, Screwtape is telling Wormwood, he says, it's not that you don't want to argue with your patient. That's what he said. That's what novices do. You don't want to argue with them, because argument is based on reason, and reason is the domain of the enemy, which would mean God's domain. And so you want to keep their mind, the patient's mind, in just feelings, just vague ideas, vague thoughts. God is a kind of a spirit, and as long as I'm kind of doing things right, and just I feel good, in not really examining who God is and what He requires of us, you miss the opportunity to become a Christian then. So that was one of the main ways he was doing. Also saying, keep their mind out of science. Don't let them get into that, because that's the depth of reason.
Yeah, give them a vague understanding. I'd say definitely with my experience with Muslims, that's been a major thing. In fact, it was just last Wednesday night, I was on a stream on the House of Hunan's channel with a Muslim who I've talked with before, and just going through and thinking of things logically. He would be willing to apply logic to the hadiths. He would be willing to apply logic to the Bible, but he would not apply the same level of logic to the Quran itself. In fact, he downright refused to do that, even though he was willing to be critical on the other two fronts. The Quran, he refused to take as seriously, at least I would see it as seriously as the other two, because if you're going to think of it critically, then you're thinking about it. But he just has this vague understanding that it just all must be true. It just all must be there.
So that's one of the things that I think the enemy does, talking about demons, to draw our mind away from what is real, just to get us a sense of feelings and about how, and not that our feelings aren't real themselves, but not really seriously thinking things through. And sometimes we think that the enemy's best thing to do is just hit us smack really hard, get us down on the ground, and until we suffer and surrender. But here's another quote. Indeed, the safest road to hell is the gradual one, the gentle slope, soft underfoot, without sudden turnings, without milestones, without signposts. And so if we had a signpost, if we knew what was going on, then the light would dawn in our eyes, and we come to full clarity and say, hey, I can't do this. I have to stop.
I think that actually right there is a real treasure trove of theology. I think right there you find the reason for polemics. You find the reason for challenging the status quo as far as these things are just okay and we just all do our own thing and we'll just all live our own lives. And we're like, no, you are going to hell. We want you to not be going to hell. We don't want you to suffer for eternity.
Right.
So we need to speak up and say, hey, wake up. We want to put those signs there so you see what is happening.
Yeah, there's another part in this book where he's talking about where the patient, his patient, might suffer death. And the younger demon, Wormwood, is getting really excited. Says, he's going to die. He's going to die. And Scrooge says, that'd be terrible. That'd be the worst thing, because he's a Christian right now. We'd rather him not die. We'd rather him live a long, long life with much opportunity to pull him into hell, where, I'd rather have him in a nursing home, lied to by doctors and everybody around him that everything's okay, everything's going to be fine, and then the end will come. So the opposite then is true that's shown here. And there's one last quote over the battle of the mind that I'd like to throw out there. And that is when Screwtape is talking about the goal of his enemy, which is the goal of God, that for people, that when we have really learned to love our neighbors as ourselves, we will be allowed to love ourselves as our neighbors. So much of the gospel is flipping things on its head. Jesus came to say, if you've heard, if you commit adultery, that's it. And I'm telling you that if you lust after a woman with your eyes, you've already committed adultery with her. So in this case, let me read this again. When they talk about people have really learned to love their neighbors as themselves, they will be allowed to love themselves as their neighbors. Why is that? Why would we then be allowed to love ourselves?
In the end, we could actually see ourselves for what we truly are in that case, not just be given into pridefulness.
Yeah.
At least in my mind, that's what I'm seeing there.
And it's the case for true humility, too. True humility doesn't, we completely have our eyes off ourselves. That if we were to build, I think he mentions this here too, the most grand cathedral at all, it's the biggest building. And we have single-handedly, as the architect, done this thing. And we no longer look at ourselves so much. In true humility, we would say, yes, that is a great accomplishment. But then look at other people, what they've done with equal joy, equal excitement and satisfaction, and say, he's done this, she's done that. Look at what people have done, and look at a sunrise and sunset, and feel the glory of everything equal to our own accomplishments. That's what true humility would be. So moving on to the next theme, tyranny of the future. The first quote is, the future of all things is the thing least like eternity. It is the most temporal part of time, for the past is frozen and no longer flows, and the present is all up with eternal rays, is lit all up with eternal rays. In other words, the present is the point at which time touches eternity. What are your thoughts?
That was going off something now. Brain just froze for a second. No,
Speaking of the present.
I think how many times the simple joys of life have been stolen away because of worries of the future.
There you go.
How many times we haven't been able to enjoy today because tomorrow there might be this hypothetical situation that might, we might have problems. I got to prepare for it. So we might have this hypothetical situation. I don't have any indication that it's 100% going to be there, but it might happen. So I'm going to prepare for it, and I'm going to be busy. I'm going to put my time and effort into preparing for this possible situation, instead of just saying, you know what? This is a day the Lord has made, and I will enjoy it for what its value. That's not to say that we don't do things in preparation for the future. We definitely do, but not to waste time worrying about possible futures, to look at the present that is given to you at that moment.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought this would have been true, but the more I thought about it, the more true I think it is. Usually when you think of someone who is just mostly interested in the present, they maybe you might consider them simple-minded or hedonistic, that they're just looking for the current pleasure, the current what can happen now. And that's not what this is talking about. This is talking about your service to God in the moment. If you are content in pleasing Him now, at this moment, all other things will be satisfied. Here's another quote along the same lines from the book. Gratitude looks to the past and love to the present. Fear, avarice, lust, and ambition look ahead. And the point that Screwtape was saying here is, look, you want to get your patient to keep looking ahead, either for insane hope of some utopia in the future that he is forever slathering for to get to, but never achieves. Then they have the enemy has us then on a leash that just continues to promise to go forward like a carrot in front of us, but never receiving it. Whereas the present, then we're looking to fulfill our duty to God and to Christ, where you have love is then worked through in the present. If somebody has a need, you're meeting the need now instead of having fear of, oh, I can't help you out, because if I help you out, then I might have trouble in the future. I won't have money for myself or what I want or whatever. I'm more easily able to give. You think of the rich young ruler that approached Jesus. He wasn't able to give up what he had, probably because of fear of the future.
I think at the same time, you can look at the widow who gave up everything to God, and not fearing that, well, I might not be provided for tomorrow. I'm going to put my trust in God, give up everything, and put it in Him. And I think that's a real sharp difference between the two, where you see faithfulness in one hand and disbelief in the other.
Here's another one. There is nothing like suspense and anxiety for barricading a human's mind against the enemy. This is, again, spoken from a demon's point of view. So the enemy for him would be God. Let me reread that. There is nothing like suspense and anxiety for barricading a human's mind against the enemy. He wants men to be concerned with what they do. Our business as demons is to keep them thinking about what will happen to them, not what they do, but will happen to them.
Again, the constant worry of the future, wondering what's going to happen, what's the next thing that's going to blow up, what's the next massive issue.
Or even, I have great plans and ambitions for the future, and you might even think that you're doing them for God. But if it's done out of your own ambition and conceit, this is something that's going to crumble. You don't sacrifice your present calling for a future hope. So the third theme we could like to go over, and stop me if there's anything else that's in there that you want to make a comment about or anything, is the third theme is mere Christianity. Now, this is mere as in M-E-R-E, not mirror as in a reflection of. So mere Christianity means simply Christianity. It's the bare essentials, the bare bones of what Christianity is about. He has an entire book named Mere Christianity, but he does explore some of it in here too, from the devil's point of view. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. I'm going to ask you a question. What does mere Christianity mean?
Mere Christianity means, I don't know.
Okay.
In this context, I'm not sure where you're going with it.
Okay. Well, it means one thing so in one of these letters, I'm not sure which one it was, he was saying what you want to do is you want to get him to believe in Christianity and. Yeah. Remember that one? Christianity yes. And. That's what this is. So mere Christianity is just a Christianity without the and. The and that you add to Christianity is Christianity and some kind of social effort or some other thing that you would attach to that may be your way of expressing your Christian walk. But then that becomes bigger than your walk with Christ. For example, this was written back during the Second World War, and he brings up the example of should you make your patient an extreme pacifist or an ardent patriot? This is during World War II, so in Britain. So what would be better? And they had to custom make whatever approach, whatever extreme. They had to custom make that extreme to this patient's personality. So when you talk about mere Christianity, we're cutting off that other part. We're coming in here and saying this is just Christianity by itself. And when you start to attach other things to it, like if you're a pacifist, all of a sudden you start arguing with other people and make it a big deal, more so than your Christian walk. And I think that's really important for today's society where there's so much schism and division among our nation and among Christians. You know, whether you're Republican, Democrats, left, right, or whatever the deal is, that can become your bigger than what your Christian walk is. What are your thoughts?
I think that's a good point. I think there's the other side of the coin, which he was warning, Screwtape was warning the other demon about, was make sure that it doesn't become the other way, where Christianity is the big thing and maybe patriotism is the secondary. And if you have an ardent Christian who is doing everything to the glory of God, and that is number one, and then he's also very pro-patriot, keeping that in line with his Christian theology, that's devastating, according to what Screwtape was writing as well. So I guess there's two sides of it where, again, just like anything, it can be beneficial and it can be devastating.
Well, he did say that all extremes, they wanted to encourage all extremes except for extreme devotion to the enemy. And that means God. So whether it's like you're very much into body fitness, working out, which is a good thing, but that could be taken too far, so that begins to define your walk with Christ instead of your walk with Christ defining it.
Yeah, I guess that's what my point was. What is your defining aspect? Is Christianity your defining point, and then anything else is just, going to the gym, that's just secondary. Everything else should be secondary to your walk with God. And your walk with God should define everything else.
Okay. So I'm going to go on to the next theme. This is theme number 4. We have 5 altogether, so we're getting pretty close here. This is an interesting take about how demons operate, and I'm not sure if it's really scriptural or not. But it doesn't. I don't believe it contradicts Scripture. It just doesn't seem to be supported directly in Scripture. The first part is, of course. The second part is a question. The first part is this: God creates sons and daughters fit as rulers in his kingdom. Demons desire our will, fit to be consumed. God creates sons and daughters fit as rulers in his kingdom. Demons desire our will, fit to be consumed. So this is a direct. This next one is a direct quote. We want cattle who can finally become food. He, God, wants servants who can finally become sons. Now, this is scriptural. This is definitely in the Bible. But it's a difference in there. He's talking about consuming us, just consuming our will, just so that our will would be subservient to us. But doesn't God want our will to be submissive to him as well?
Yes, he does. In fact.
So isn't God in the same way like demons are?
No, in this picture, demons are consuming. They are the black hole that's pulling things into themselves in order to empower themselves, where God is overflowing. Yes, he wants us to submit and be willing to be part of God's plan, but at the same time, as we are submitting and giving to him, and he is taking with his right hand, he is giving back with his left hand.
Okay. So that brings me this other quote, the second quote for this theme, and that is, when he, God, talks of their losing their selves. Now, this is Screwtape talking about people, humans. When God talks about their losing themselves, he means only abandoning the clamor of self-will. Once they have done that, he really gives them back all their personality and boasts, I'm afraid sincerely, that when they are wholly his, they will be more themselves than ever. How can that work? How can giving our will over to God make us more ourselves than ever.
I can think of that very easily. I think looking back at my life at the times that I've tried to do something within my own power and in my own timing and not relying on God's timing or power ended up being an empty thing. But if I would have just turned that over to God, once I did it in God's timing and in his power, it became something so much more fruitful than I ever could have imagined.
Yeah. And I think this takes it a step further. It's not just the things we do, but who we are. That as we surrender our will to him, I would say in my own life, if I would have followed the direction where I was headed, I would be far less fulfilled than I am now. And it's not just fulfillment as saying my own personal gratification. I'm talking about enlarged. I can look back at the people that I used to hang out with. And this is no credit to me at all. This is beyond me. This is a credit for him. Because I've messed some things up royally in my life. But I can look at some of the friends I had when I was younger and say, this is the direction that they chose to go. I chose to go this direction. They have, some of the people that I'm thinking about have very little. And I'm not talking about in terms of material wealth. I'm talking about in wholeness of life as compared to this. And one way I look at it is just family life. How much more life there is here with the path that God has put out versus the path that the enemy has put out.
I think anyone who's watching this can put that on their own lives as well and really examine that. Times that you've taken control, times that you've chosen the path, or people who you know who have had very similar paths to you, who have chosen to take their own path and take control of their own life and see how that's not so worked out so well for them.
Yeah, and I say that with I want to be very careful in saying that too, because it's not that I'm not patting myself on the back for this, because there's been enough times that I've made huge mistakes in my life. And I could look back at the train wreck that was there and also see where God has redeemed it. The difference is the redemptive process from God, buying back, like redeeming, like having a coupon for something. God has bought back the things that I've messed up. And the other person that I'm thinking about has had that opportunity, but he has chosen not to do it. And I'm not saying in any kind of condemning way. I'm just looking back with sobriety and saying, wow, there go I, but by the grace of God. The last theme would be my time is my own. And I am very, very guilty of this.
I heard that part. I'm like, oh.
There's a really good section in here, and I don't do credit. You've again.
I got a lot of work to do.
Read this book, okay, or listen to it or whatever. I think there's even free on YouTube. There's all sorts of famous actors who have read through this book. John Cleese, I think, is one. The guy who did Gollum in Lord of the Rings, Sturgis. I can't remember his name, but I believe he also did this book too. And I haven't listened to his rendition. I'd really like to. But please do yourself a favor and read it. Read it yourself. So this is the last quote that I have. My time is my own. You must therefore jealously guard in his mind, your patient's mind, the demon's patient's mind, the curious assumption, my time is my own. Let him have the feeling that he starts each day as the lawful possessor of 24 hours. The man can neither make nor retain one moment of time. It all comes to him by pure gift. He might as well regard the sun and moon as his chattels. And yet, that's something we do. We get upset when I have plans for the day, and then somebody comes up and demands my time, and I could get upset with them, angry, snap back, or whatever. But this is where it's important for us to also live in the moment with God's guidance, because it very well may be that you had your plans, but God had his. And this person came up to you and very well may be needing something that God wants to give to you, give through you to that person. And you saying, oh, no, this is my time. This is mine. No, it's not. It's not your time. It's not my time. It's God's time.
Yeah, once you really start thinking of that concept of that this day, every minute of it, one, you can't make any more time. This is something that's given to you. You can't control how fast time goes or how slow it goes. It goes at the same pace, no matter what. You can't interfere with it. You can't change it. You can't add more years to your life. There are things that you can do to help yourself live longer, but in the end, that's a set time.
Yeah. Everybody from Elon Musk to the homeless person around the corner, every one of us has a 24 hours in a day.
Think about it. What if we all lived, at least all Christians lived with that attitude that every minute we have is from God, and we need to address it as if it is a gift of his, as well as a charge from him to do something with it.
Right.
Can you imagine how much more productive Christianity would be if that was our mentality?
Yeah.
That would be crazy. I'm not coming down on anyone on this, because I look at that and say, I got some work to do. I got some growing to do, because I need to try to apply this to my own life and really see the benefits of that. Because there's times that I've looked at that and said, well, I really want me. I want this for me. It's like, okay, no, none of that is actually yours. It's all God's, and deal with it.
So that's all I had. There's definitely more that can be dug into, but I didn't want to belabor. I would just, like I said, encourage you to read this yourself.
I have a couple of quick ones from definitely through this one, that this read through that I did that really stuck out to me. First of all, the Screwtape used a lot of terms, making the patient think of, when you're talking about thinking of the future, he used terms like, what if it's progressive? Is it progressive enough? Is it where history is going, or the right side of history? A lot of terms I've heard quite recently in the political sphere and from different political sides that say, hey, are these your ideas? Or is this something that's been whispered in your ear? Because, and the very fact that we can look back and say, this guy all the way back here was writing this from a demon's point of view. And now you're using the same terms to move forward an agenda that may not be godly. That seems like a bit of a red flag to me. Another concept is the concept of time he puts forward, and how God's eternity and how all of time is current to God. How he's not stuck to our linear progression of time. He used a different term in there, but it ended up being the same. And I've used that term in previous videos. It just hit me this time as I was going through this book. And I was like, see? I'm not just making this stuff up.
Right.
Other people have also come to the same conclusion, where God is an eternal being. He does not have to experience time in our same linear progression. That doesn't have to be a thing. So I think this was specifically, he was specifically talking in this case to prayer, how someone can pray for weather, for a bright sunny day or for rain the next day. And it happened and the prayer be answered, but at the same time, the person who prayed could look at that and say, well, did it really? Because, see, before I prayed, the weather was kind of already decided, weather patterns and where the rainstorms were going to be and where the sun was going to be was already decided long before that. So did my prayer actually matter at all? And the answer, according to C.S. Lewis, was yeah.
Mhm.
You just are seeing it only two snapshots of what God sees as a continuous picture. So those really stood out to me. And of course, we had the Screwtape Gives a Toast at the end,
Right.
which was later published. Was not published by C.S. Lewis. It was written by C.S. Lewis. It was in his notes. He didn't actually officially publish it, if my understanding is correct, until afterwards.
I think it was actually one of the last things he wrote.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah, before his death, and that was in 1962, 63. So it's more timely, and man, it's if you have a chance to read that too, it's almost prophetic to what we're dealing with. It's as if he was closing off the age that he lived through, and now he's speaking to our age with political correctness and a lot of the other things that are going on with relativism.
Yeah, you can really see a lot of what he's talking about there in today's society.
Yeah.
I don't want to go through all of it because there's a lot there, and this does not have to be a 12-hour live stream, because that's what would happen if we actually went through and examined every bit from there. So I would strongly encourage you guys to read it and then reread it, because I've done that myself and I have greatly enjoyed it. So is there anything else you wanted to add upon there?
Yeah, why we're wearing these goofy hats.
It's Christmas time. It's Christmas time. And to tell you the truth, I couldn't find my hat. So my kids had this one, and I was like, I could take it. And then John saw me wearing it and thought,
Well, that's right. And the color, these are actually the same color, I believe. And I need a new camera. I'm so washed out. I'm actually of African American heritage, and this camera has just completely washed me out. So
he's pasty white. I've seen him in person. He's pasty white.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I glow. You forget about Rudolph. You don't need Rudolph. Just put me in front. And
the only one I've ever heard of that are whiter than you would be Muhammad. The whiteness of his shanks.
Oh boy, don't want to see my shanks.
So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and throw them in the comments. Again, like I said, the next book that we will be reviewing, I'm not sure about. I actually don't have one planned out, which I have in the past. I'm open to suggestion. If you guys have a book you guys would like us to review, go to put it in the comments there, or in the comment section if this video has already been released, or in the live chat if we're still live with you guys today. I will let you know that if it's another C.S. Lewis book, we'll probably do a live stream. Because let's be honest, there's just so much to unpack from.
Yeah, we'll see how this goes. Stuff. If this works out well, we'll do another one like this.
Yeah, I can't do a 10-minute review on a C.S. Lewis book. There's just no way. No way. I will always be itching, saying, I want to add more. I want to add more. So, that being said, as far as the next couple of weeks goes, I do have my live streams booked out. I will not be live streaming on Christmas Eve. That's a no-go. New Year's Eve, we will be doing a year-end review of this channel. So what's happened, what's growing on this platform, as well as other platforms, what platforms have opened up, donations, what we've done with them, all of those sorts of things. I know it sounds a little tedious, but put it all out there for you guys and let you guys know what is going on with this community that we are building here. Also, let you guys know in that what we're going to be doing for the next year, what's going on, and a game plan there, and how you guys can really join in. But as we are closing this out, we might as well end with prayer. So let's go ahead and take a moment and do some prayer. Lord of heaven and earth, we come before you. We thank you for the opportunity to study your word and see what is going on. I offer up the Muslim that I've been talking to on the other live chat. I ask for your wisdom and guidance, that you show him the path and show him who you are. I pray for friend B that you help heal his family and help heal him and strengthen him through all the trials he is going through. I ask your hand on our friend Johnny, that you heal the blood clots that were in his legs, either through miraculous means or through the hands of a doctor. I ask that you will keep him and guide him and really help him keep focused on you in these times of hardship. In the name of Jesus Christ, I pray. Amen.
Amen.